Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. As you can see, I'm in a different location today. As a mom, we have to adjust. So I'm your host, Sharice Walker, and you are on Unbreakable Mompreneurs. And today we have Mariela Desantiago. And she is going to talk about exactly what my entire podcast is. And that's being a mom, and it doesn't have to stop you from having a business and achieving your dreams. So Mariela, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And being a mom, right, you're the kind of like the go-to for everything. So I totally understand having to switch up roles and do things on a whim. So I think this is really amazing of you to still be able to do two things at once, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so my name is Mariela Desantiago. I am the host and creator of the New Mom Talk podcast. I'm also the host and I guess founder of the Carlsbad Mom Crew, which is now has expanded to South County, San Diego.
Wow.
So my business is essentially bringing moms together, building a community, and providing resources for moms, especially moms that are maybe the first out of their group of friends to be in this space and don't know where to turn to.
How did you get it started?
So I initially started with my podcast. I went from being a special ed teacher to staying home with my son. And I do not like the term stay-at-home mom. I think the term should be raising a human because we don't stay home.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so with my podcast after that, I realized that I really wanted to run a mom group because I would go to different mom events, but it just didn't always fit with my schedule. And I kind of like being the one to decide what I want to do.
Yep.
I'm not a big fan of being on other people's schedules. So I ended up taking over another group and I rebranded, I renamed it. I have built it to be what it is, which is creating events, having sponsors for each of those events as a way to share other smaller local businesses with moms that they otherwise wouldn't have known about. As moms, we're bombarded by the big brands that can, afford all of the big marketing budgets. And so I wanted to create an alternative space so that moms had a way of learning about the smaller businesses and the local and mom-owned brands.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it is important because the fact that you built a community, that's the part that a lot of times I was one of those moms who I had to work all the time, right? 70 hours a week. So when I had time, I did not want to be with other people. I wanted to just be with my kids. However, now that things have changed, why do you think it's important for moms to have a community and reach out to other moms?
Well, I was one of the first out of my friends to have kids. So once you are the first, you kind of tend to be pushed out, right? Because, oh, you're pregnant. You can't come and drink anyway. So we're not going to invite you because you're going to say no. You're going to be tired, whatever it is, right? There's always an excuse as to why you can't come to something. So you just kind of get pushed out. Therefore, in my situation, I needed mom friends to be able to talk about like what I'm going through. This was my first time going through it. I didn't know what to expect other than whatever I Googled, if I Googled anything, and I wasn't very knowledgeable in the area of pregnancy and postpartum. So having those friends that were going through that same place with you and having kids in that similar age group, at least for me, was really helpful to be able to find those connections, to be able to talk about what I was going through, to share things that worked, that didn't work. You just learn so much about just parenting and different like products or ways to deal with anything that has to do with the baby.
That's true. That's very, very, very true. For being understanding. Okay. So keep going.
Yeah, and so for me, just having that mom community was really important. Plus, I also didn't want to do all of these things by myself.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to go explore all of these like kid things
Mhm.
with my infant that couldn't use the playground, but I didn't want to just sit at home all day. So I wanted a friend to go to the park and just do tummy time with while we like would talk and our kids would just lay on their bellies.
Yeah. Nope, that's true. And don't you find there is a difference between people who have had children and people who haven't? And I don't mean that disrespectful, but I just, to me, what I found is it's very different because when you have somebody else that you have to sacrifice everything for, it changes you as a person. And so, do you find that sometimes it's harder to hang around people that have not had that experience? And so you find yourself gravitating to people that do have children?
Yes, so there's 100% a big difference, right? Because I think before I became a mom, I didn't understand why it was such a struggle.
Mhm.
Excuse me, why it was such a struggle for people to get ready to get out the door with their toddler or their infant. I didn't understand that I guess toddlers didn't really comply with directives.
Mhm. Yep.
And being that, I'm the one that's the default parent that does everything with my son, I'm automatically, yes, looking for other friends or a group of friends that my husband and I can hang out with, where our kid also has somebody that they can build a relationship with. And maybe we can get, I don't know, 30 seconds to sit.
Right.
But there's a big difference on like that understanding of like why it takes so long to get ready, on like maybe why you parent the way that you do, maybe why you communicate with your child the way that you do, that somebody that doesn't have a child might look not agree or judge you on. And that's okay. They don't know because they don't have kids.
Mhm.
I also think that being a parent really helps you. If you're not somebody that's very good at setting boundaries, it
Yeah.
really teaches you how to be excellent at setting boundaries and being able to say no.
I agree. My kids love this Boss Baby movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it. And I'm the type like I'll be in there with my kids, but if they're watching a movie, I'm working on other stuff. And so for the first time, I sat down and watched the very beginning of this movie. It's kind of disturbed a little, not gonna lie. And because I didn't realize that this really is how it is, that the parents act frantic. And if as soon as the baby cries, they're trying to take care of the baby or they're trying to do something else. And then if you have other kids, which I've always had other kids, that they're feeling a little left out. And how do you bridge that gap? And it wasn't until I watched that just a couple weeks ago that I'm like, I've never thought of it that way. That you do have to set boundaries and the importance of setting boundaries and the importance of getting your baby to understand that it's okay to self-soothe and learn how to do things. And so learning how to say no, especially, is something that's important. My daughter, so two younger ones, and we're at the dentist right now. That's why I'm in my car with one of them. She's totally fine. She's the younger of the two. The older one freaks out and has literally an anxiety attack and a meltdown. And so I'm like, we're gonna go. So you either can go today or you can go on Tuesday. And so she's like, fine, I'll do it today. And then but I'm not gonna do this. And so she'd sit there and she'd push the boundaries. She'd say no, but then she'd come back. And then I'm not going to do this, but then she'd come back because I'm just like, we're going and we're doing this, we're doing that. And I sat there and I watched. Here's this little 11-year-old who can be very mature on other things, but she's still pushing the boundaries. She's still seeing how far she can get away. And she's still seeing if she throws a temper tantrum, which she really doesn't, only with the dentist. But if she throws a temper tantrum, is she going to get her way? And so I'm like, I'm just going to remain calm. Then you're in the car and she's jumping in the front seat, jumping in the back seat. So I shut the door and start to walk in. And she's like, Mom, wait, don't leave me. And so then she gets to the front door, but now she refuses to go in. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to go in. Don't leave me. And so she comes in and then it was fine. She walked out smiling, saying thank you, but it was the unknown. And so I think as a parent, the importance of understanding the boundaries with yourself, with your children, and with your friends. It's okay to say no. Somebody used the word I can't. I don't like that because you're taking the power away from yourself by saying, I can't. It's no, I don't want to. No, I'm not available. Or simply no with no explanation.
Hmm.
And I think as moms, we feel like we have to justify everything.
Yes.
And we don't.
Yes. I know. I think that's the hardest part. It's definitely a learning curve being able to adjust to being able to just say no or say, hey, that's not going to work for me, especially if you're used to always being the one that like adjusts your schedule or just changes things up to fit other people's needs. And then all of a sudden, you're setting these very clear boundaries of, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit of like almost like a culture shock for
Mhm.
people on the other end, on the receiving end of it.
It's true. And I'm going to use today as a perfect example. I'm like, can you bump it just an hour? You're like, no, I can't. And I respect that. We made an agreement and sorry that my daughter things have gone a little longer, right? But I brought a backup plan knowing that just in case that happened, that I'll just be prepared to do it in my car. So thank you for being understanding.
Yeah, well, thank you for still willing to move forward with it.
No,
And if
not a
I
problem. Okay, so what are some of the struggles in this group that you're in? What are two struggles that you find new moms have being a new mom?
One is if they are just recently had their baby, is being able to have that like confidence to get out of the house.
Mm-mm. Gotcha.
That's I, that's a struggle, right? When you have your first baby and just,
Yeah.
I mean, I sat in the back seat with my infant until, oh gosh, he was probably 12 weeks old. I mean, I couldn't drive for 8 weeks.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's, there's so much newness going on. So it's just being able to build that confidence. And then the other thing is finding the friends that have kids in a similar age group so that you can really find the connections and be able to share what works, what doesn't work for you, what you've tried. Because I think this is the biggest thing is that just because it didn't work for you doesn't mean it won't work for someone else or vice versa.
Hmm. Absolutely. All right, let's talk about postpartum because this is something that isn't talked about. It's talked about more now, but like it was a big thing, and I feel like it's not talked about as much. So, as a new mom, what should you be aware of with postpartum?
I love talking about postpartum because I did not know what to
Yeah.
expect. And let me tell you, I got lots of tears and lost lots of hair. So, so one of my biggest things is that I tell people like be selfish and prepare for postpartum. Ask for a postpartum doula if you can. If people come over to meet your baby, have everybody do something. It's okay for you to say, hey, can you switch the baby's laundry for me? Will you unload those dishes?
Mhm.
I just have a few left in the dishwasher. Like, make everyone do something to help you because they're there to meet your baby and you're not there to host. It's
Mhm.
not time for you to host. It's time for you to recover.
Mhm. That is
Um,
great advice. I've never thought of that. That's great advice.
Next time, I'm totally going to be selfish. Like, if you're coming over to meet my baby, you're going to be put to work. Otherwise, don't come over.
Yep. Well, I think also, so my twins, I was on bed rest for 4 months. So at 20 weeks, I was fine. I went to my appointment on Friday. By Monday, I couldn't stand up. I was in severe pain. And so finally, the nurse is like, well, put your bum up in the air and or lay on your left side or drink lots of water. So after like 3 hours, and no, there's something wrong. So she's like, "Ah, fine, come in." And so I was in preterm labor and hospitalized for a week, then on bed rest. And finally, at 36 weeks, I went into labor and then the kids were in the NICU for 3 weeks. So when I finally got them home, like I don't want people over. So I actually put a sign on my door like, sorry. I mean, it was in the middle of winter. If they would have got RSV, it would have killed them. So I was very selfish in terms of trying to protect them. And I think it's okay to set your boundaries and it's okay to say, yeah, I'm okay with that, or no, I'm not. Washing their hands, doing things like that. It was huge because you never know. And to ask somebody to help you out is a great idea. And I think also something we don't talk about as a new mom, miscarriages. You still go through postpartum. You still have things that you have to heal. It's to other people, it's like, oh, it didn't work out. Sorry, because they don't have any baby to show for it. But for you, you were pregnant, you were carrying a baby. And I didn't realize until my second one what postpartum was and taking time to heal for yourself and mourn the loss. That's not something that it's a depressing topic we're not going to get into on this one, but postpartum is real. And to speak up and say, hey, look, I'm having a hard time is okay and normal.
Yeah. And to really like find those friends that can help you and support you. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Uh, what I always did was, I mean, granted, you don't get as many visits once you're postpartum
Right.
as you did while you were pregnant, but I always came in with a list of questions. So come with a list of questions and find resources and groups that can support you because postpartum is different for everyone,
Right.
but just something as simple as like I had a C-section. I didn't know. Well, first of all, I like avoided the whole like birth part because I was just so scared of like seeing what happens to your body. So I just thought if I just don't know, it's just easier.
Right.
So I had a C-section thinking, oh, well, I'm not really going to bleed or be, as I guess need as much recovery as somebody that had a vaginal birth.
Mhm.
No, you still bleed. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's just so much that you just don't know, especially if it's your first one. So educate yourself as much as you can. Get all of I did prepare for both like a vaginal birth and a C-section birth with all of like the recovery kits,
Yeah.
but get all of that and ask for help. And if you can, like I said, whether it's a postpartum doula or somebody that you're not afraid to say, hey, I need you to do this for me if you're going to be helping me while I recover. Like
That's great.
the I've had some friends do like meal trains on their registry instead of baby gifts. Do that. Um, and if you are visiting somebody that is postpartum or maybe don't even visit them, but maybe just like drop something off at their front door, whether it's a meal, send them a DoorDash gift card, flowers, just anything that will just kind of make them feel a little bit better and make life easier for them.
I like that. That's good. So if, and how old is your baby now? Or,
Two,
okay. So I want you to think back before you were even pregnant. What advice would you give a new mom?
before being pregnant. That's a hard one. Um, I would say don't stop giving time for yourself. Like, still always make sure that you have some time for self-care, and that's different for everyone. For me, that means getting myself a workout. For others, it might mean reading a book or maybe just sitting down, laying on the bed and watching mindless TV, but find something to just appreciate yourself and to not think.
Yep. I know when I was on bed rest for the 12 weeks, I loved cross stitch and I knew, a lot of people might think, oh, I'm so bored. I can't do this. I cherished every single minute of it. And I made this huge, it was a Noah's Ark because I was having twins. So I made this huge Noah's Ark and I'm talking probably 3 by 3 cross stitch and it's gorgeous. And my mother-in-law, she framed it. And to this day, I have it on a wall, but I loved every second that I had, knowing that my life would be completely changed upside down once I had children. And I think realizing that even after you have kids, to still take time for yourself, you're not being selfish, you're filling your bucket. And that is important. Because otherwise you get burned out and you can't function for those kids.
Yeah. And then you get so easily frustrated with your kids because you haven't had a second, but you never get a second because you're a mom. So, any way that you can, whether you have a partner or other support systems, take advantage of it in 10 minutes a day. Just
Yeah,
cut it out.
it's true. It's true, true. Well, Mariela, thank you so much for coming on. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they find you?
You can find me on my website, which is newmomtalk.com. I have the link to my Instagram podcast on there. If you live in San Diego, you can find me at Carlsbad Mom Crew on Instagram, or San Diego Mom Crew. And yeah, please follow, reach out if you have any questions. If you are even visiting the area, please come to one of our events. I love always meeting moms and getting people together. So, yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. And Unbreakable Moms, you can do it. As I was just on a podcast yesterday and asked what my favorite quote is, it's you can do it, because you really are by yourself. You're not by yourself. And anything that you feel is overwhelming, you are doing a fantastic job. And just remember to cherish the moments, cherish the minutes, because they will go by fast. And enjoy your life. Have a great day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Sharice Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Sharice Walker.